It's the tool of that
Can I
Audre Lorde talks about.
Can I just let Omawale go? Go ahead.
appreciate it. Just really quick, before I even say anything, I do just want to quickly acknowledge that it's definitely like a lot of anger, like and pain in the room, like given everything that's occurred this week with, Toyin, the violent videos that we've seen online. I definitely want to acknowledge that just for the simple fact that I feel as though some of the things that I say tonight might be triggering. So I just want those of us who are my co-panelists to understand that I don't mean any ill will if you are triggered, just dealing with the trauma that we've seen this week. That being said, I think that when we address like the tension or the war, or the conflict between Black men and Black women, I think that we always have to place it in its proper historical context, right? So if you listen to Assata Shakur, she says that when she examines the behavior between Black men and Black women, the more and more she looks at it, the more and more she can trace it back to the plantation. Michelle Wallace says something very similar, where she says that when you look at Black men and Black women, there's a misunderstanding between them, and that misunderstanding is something, again, that we have to trace back to slavery. And I think it is very important for us to start with that misunderstanding, because in order for us to unpack it, I think that we have to be on equal footing. And one of the things that I stated in agreeing to join this conversation is that I would be willing to do it if it could be an honest conversation related to gender. I think the challenge that we have as Black men and Black women when we have the conversation related to gender is often we're not having it on equal footing. I feel as though one party comes to the table feeling as though they're in the position to teach, but not necessarily in a position to learn from the other party. And I think that when you do that, it just creates like a very condescending environment. So I would actually contend that like Black feminist thought, which I know a lot of my co-panelists are coming from that particular lens, I would contend that it's not an adequate framework to even have a discussion related to gender dynamics in the Black community. So
then why is that?
Because I think that it's fundamentally flawed. It's like, can a corrupt tree produce any good fruits? So when you look at its foundation, it presumes that Black men have privilege. It presumes that Black men are patriarchal, which also presumes that Black men are self-determining. And I fundamentally disagree with that. Some of the flaws that it has baked into it is it looks at gender or European gender relations and European culture as something that is universal between all men and women. And I don't think that the dynamics that exist between European men and women are indicative of the dynamics that have historically existed between Black men and Black women. I think that Black men, by and large, are underdeveloped, but we're not patriarchal. And I think evidence of that, if you look at Bell Hooks, when she talks about Black men and masculinity, she talks about Black men were the first men that came to the New World, but they didn't seek to dominate or colonize the people that were here because that wasn't their culture. That wasn't the cultural framework that they came from. So I feel oftentimes when you're having these discussions with Black feminists, they're painting you as you're just white men who happen to be Black, when I think that we have a different ontology and axiology as a people that's not acknowledged when we engage in these discussions.
Does anybody want to respond to that?
I don't necessarily want to respond. I just want to